Snow clung to Arvella's trembling fox ears as she leaned into Taryn's arms, whispering, "No one has ever held me. Why would you?" Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss more long-form HFY sci-fi romance adventures. The forest was quiet in that strange, breath-holding way winter sometimes demanded. Every branch stiff with frost, every sound swallowed before it could echo. Taryn Locke trudged through knee-deep drifts beneath the pale sky. A lone human engineer on a colony world where the storms came fast, the nights came faster, and rescue always came late. He'd wandered farther than usual from his crashed survey shuttle, chasing the faint ping of a radiation signature that might have been a malfunctioning part, or salvation. The cold bit deeper each hour, sliding past his coat seams, urging him to turn back. But then he saw her, a flash of auburn hair against the snow, tall fox ears twitching weakly. A slender form curled into the base of a frozen tree, wrapped in thin rags, utterly useless against the cold. A foxwoman, one of the frontier tribes the colonists whispered about. Beautiful, wary, dangerous. Except right now she wasn't dangerous at all. She was barely conscious, her breath shallow, her lashes dusted with ice crystals. Snowflakes clung to her hair and ears, sparkling like tiny frozen stars. Her tail, long, fluffy, golden red, lay limp behind her. Taryn knelt instantly. "Hey, stay with me." Her eyes flickered open, unfamiliar gold irises locking onto him with a mixture of fear, confusion, and something like disbelief. "You're human," she murmured, voice cracking. "You shouldn't approach my kind." "Yeah? Well, I'm doing it anyway." And when she began slipping sideways into the snow again, he caught her, without hesitation, without fear. Her body stiffened violently at the contact, ears flattening in shock. "No," she rasped. Don't touch. You'll freeze if I don't." She didn't fight. Couldn't. Her head fell lightly against his shoulder. Taryn wrapped his arms around her, lifting her with firm, careful strength. Arvella had never been held before, and the look on her face said she didn't know what to do with the warmth spreading through her. Taryn carried her back through the biting wind, boots crunching in the snow with every determined step. Arvella weighed almost nothing, far too light for someone her size. She trembled in his hold, each shiver sharp and involuntary, like her body wasn't used to relying on anyone else to survive. She kept glancing up at him as if expecting something. Judgment, threat, ownership, none of it came. "Your tribe nearby?" Taryn asked, adjusting his grip so her head rested more comfortably against his shoulder. Her ears drooped. "No tribe. Not anymore." He didn't press. Something in her voice made him swallow the dozen questions that tried to form. When they finally reached the Yizhao, small shelter built from shuttle scraps and thermal blankets, Taryn kicked the door panel open and stepped inside. The heater hummed weakly, fighting to keep the cold at bay. He lowered Arvella onto the pallet near the heat source as gently as he could. The moment his hands left her body, she curled inward, arms hugging her torso, ears folding down, eyes darting around the cramped room like it was enemy territory. But she didn't try to run. He offered her a thermal blanket. She stared at it like it might explode before snatching it cautiously and wrapping it around herself with awkward, fumbling movements. "You're shaking," Taryn said. "You need to warm up slow or you'll—" "I know how my body works, human." She tried to sound fierce, failed spectacularly. A sneeze interrupted her attempted glare. Her ears twitched violently from the force. Taryn bit back a laugh. Arvella caught the micro-expression and scowled. "Do not make sounds of amusement at me." You sneezed like a startled kitten. Her tail puffed up behind her. "I am a warrior." "Uh-huh, a warrior who needs soup." She blinked at him. "What is soup?" He stared. "Oh boy." We're in for a long night. As the heater warmed the shelter, Arvella relaxed by degrees, though her posture stayed tight and defensive. Her hands shook as she tried to hold the metal cup he gave her, claws clicking softly against the rim. Careful, it's hot. She sniffed it with suspicious precision. Why does the water smell like plants? It's broth, food. She frowned even harder. Liquid food? Just drink it. She obeyed, slowly. Her eyes widened. Oh, that is warm. Good warm or bad warm? Confusing warm. Taryn chuckled. I can work with confusing. Her gaze drifted to him then, lingering on his coat, his gloves, the frost still melting from his hair. A line formed between her brows, delicate and unsure. You carried me. Not a question. A flaw in her understanding of the universe. You were freezing. My people don't carry each other. Yeah, well, Taryn said gently. I'm not your people. She looked down into her cup, ears lowering. If you left me in the snow, no one would have blamed you. I would have blamed me. Her breath caught. The smallest, faintest inhale, but sharp with emotion, she clearly didn't know how to process. Slowly, hesitantly, she whispered, Why didn't you leave me? Taryn didn't have a dramatic answer. No heroic speech. Just the simple truth. Because nobody should die alone in the cold. Arvella closed her eyes. Her lashes trembled. And for the first time since he'd found her, she leaned slightly, just an inch, toward him. Not touching. Not yet. But close enough that he felt her start to thaw. The storm eased sometime near dawn, though neither of them had really slept. Arvella dozed in short, restless moments. Always. Waking with a soft gasp, ears twitching, tail jerking as if expecting claws, not blankets, to wrap around her. Taryn kept the heater going, occasionally adjusting her blanket when she shivered too violently. By the time the pale morning light seeped through the shelter seams, she was sitting upright again, alert, tense, pretending she hadn't nearly frozen to death in his arms only hours before. Taryn handed her another steaming cup of broth. You need more, he said. Your body burned through half its energy trying to keep you alive. Arvella sniffed the cup, nose wrinkling. It still smells like plants. It is plants. She gave him a long stare. Humans eat strange things. Says the person who literally nearly starved. Her tail flicked once, a small swipe of indignation. I was not starving. I was conserving strength. You were starving. A long silence. Then she muttered, Possibly. Taryn smirked. Progress. She sipped the broth again, slower this time, her expression softening in reluctant appreciation. The heat warmed her cheeks, chasing the last of the frostbite pale color away. Her fox ears gradually rose from their drooping posture, standing tall and attentive. She caught him looking. What? She demanded. Nothing. You were staring at my ears. A little. They are not amusing. They're expressive, he said, like little emotional antennas. The ears snapped flat. They are not antennas. Sure they aren't. Her tail puffed out again, betraying her fluster. She seemed to realize this and tucked it around her legs, as if banishing it from participating in the conversation. Taryn hid a smile behind his own cup. Despite her sharp retorts and stern tone, something about her had changed overnight. She kept glancing toward him, not suspiciously, but cautiously curious, like she was studying a strange animal she wasn't sure was safe yet. Did your people really never carry each other? Taryn asked as he checked the heater's fuel cell. She stiffened. Carrying someone means you claim responsibility for their survival. Failing them means you lose honor. So they don't carry each other out of fear of failure? Fear of shame, she corrected. It is better to let the injured die with dignity than to risk failing and dragging them down. Taryn's jaw tightened. That's not dignity. That's abandonment. Arvella looked away, shoulders curling inward. It is how we survive. Doesn't sound like surviving to me. He expected anger. Instead, Arvella's voice dropped to a quiet, trembling whisper. Then why am I still alive? The question hung between them, raw and fragile. Taryn crouched in front of her, catching her gaze. Because you deserve to be. Because someone decided you were worth saving. Her lips parted. A breath trembled out. No one had ever told her that. He could see it in her eyes. Before either of them could speak again, a sharp chirping sound echoed from Taryn's radar unit. The screen flickered to life with a new ping. Looks like I found what I was tracking, he said, grabbing his coat. A crashed relay node. Could have spare components for my beacon. She eyed the open door, where snow still drifted lightly outside. You're going out again? Yeah, I need parts. But you should stay here and rest. You can't walk far yet. Alone? She asked. It wasn't an accusation, it was concern, and maybe a little fear. He smiled. I'll be quick. I should. She stopped, ears flicking uncertainly. I should accompany you. You can barely stand. I can stand perfectly well. She stood, immediately wobbled. Taryn caught her elbow before she toppled. Her ears turned bright red. Walking will be slower than usual, she admitted through clenched teeth. You think? He teased. I am not weak. I didn't say you were. She glared at him, then softened, just a touch. Then do not speak to me like I am fragile. Deal, as long as you don't pretend you're invincible. Arvella considered this, then nodded once. Very well. I will walk, slowly, but I will walk. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders like a cloak and stepped outside with him, but only after he promised the snow wouldn't try to eat her again, which he assumed was a joke, until she clarified it absolutely was not. They trekked through the frosted forest, her steps shaky at first, but growing more certain as the cold woke her instincts. She moved close, almost too close, as if the world outside the shelter suddenly felt bigger, louder, colder. Eventually she spoke, voice soft enough that the wind nearly stole it. Taryn, when you carried me last night. He glanced at her. She was staring straight ahead, ears trembling. It felt safe, she whispered. I did not know safety could feel warm. He didn't say anything, just moved a little closer to her side. She didn't move away. The relay node lay somewhere beyond the ridge, half buried under a mess of winter-bent branches and frost-heavy undergrowth. Taryn kept the scanner in one hand and an eye on Arvella with the other. She didn't ask for help, never would. But every few steps she paused, adjusting her balance as though relearning her own body. Truthfully, she handled the cold better than he expected. Truthfully, she was also absolutely watching him for cues, like a wild creature gauging whether the forest or the human made a safer bet. The human seemed to be winning. They followed a narrow path where the snow wasn't quite as deep. Arvella stepped lightly, ears flicking with each new sound. The forest was alive with tiny noises, creaking branches, distant birds, the whisper of shifting snow. But she reacted to all of them, as if expecting danger. At one point she froze entirely, tail fluffed. Taryn, she whispered sharply. Something moves. He stopped, listened. A small rustle brushed through the bushes to their left. Probably a snow hare, he said. Her eyes widened in horror. They are vicious. A hare? Yes. It's a rabbit. A dangerous one, she insisted, with teeth. Taryn almost laughed, but the sheer seriousness on her face forced him to swallow it. Noted, he said. We'll stay alert for deadly rabbits. Her ears flattened. You mock me. A little. It's affectionate. She blinked at that, ears rising. Affectionate mockery? Yeah, like teasing. Arvella considered this slowly. I do not understand teasing. It's when you joke with someone instead of about them. That sounds dangerous. It's not, it's warm. Her cheeks colored faintly. Everything you humans do seems warm. He pretended not to notice the way her tail curled slightly at her side, as if trying to hide its reaction. They continued upward, the ridge growing steeper. At the top, Taran paused to catch his breath, less from physical strain, and more because Arvella had stopped behind him, staring at the horizon. Golden morning light spilled across the frozen valley, setting her hair ablaze in auburn fire. Her fox ears twitched gently, catching the breeze, and her eyes reflected the landscape like molten amber. It's beautiful from up here, Taran said. It is vast, she murmured. Too open. My people lived among dense trees, places where sound stays close. She swept a hand at the expanse. This feels like the sky is watching me. That's just called nature. It is unsettling. Not everything big wants to swallow you. She squinted at him. How do you know? Experience. That seems foolish. Probably. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. She quickly looked away as if embarrassed by the impulse. Down the ridge they spotted the half-collapsed relay node jutting from a snowbank like a broken fang. Taran approached, brushing frost off its panel. The casing was cracked, and something, had clawed at it. Arvella crouched beside him, sniffing the air. Her nose wrinkled. Predators marked this. How long ago? Several nights. She touched one of the gouges, ears dipping. They wanted the metal for their nests, nothing else. Metal nests? She nodded. Forest runners like shiny things. Are they dangerous? Only if you steal back what they steal from you. He chuckled, noted. I'll avoid wildlife diplomacy for now. Arvella's eyes softened just slightly. You joke to hide your fear. I joke to avoid dying of stress. She thought that over. Perhaps I should joke as well. You could try. She took a breath. Your face is odd. Then she frowned deeply. That was not correct, was it? Taran snorted, nearly dropping the panel. We'll workshop it. While he started prying open the access casing, Arvella circled the clearing. She moved with surprising grace now, steps growing more confident as warmth and energy seeped back into her muscles. Her tail swayed, not puffed, not defensive, just moving, relaxed, almost curious. Found something, she called. He walked over, expecting trouble. Instead, Arvella stood over a mound of snow that concealed a cluster of frost-choked berries. These are edible, she said. My clan gathered them in winter. You sure? Yes. They give strength and are very sour. How sour? She popped one into her mouth, chewed once, and immediately made a face so violently scrunched that Taran burst out laughing. Arvella spit the berry into the snow. I had forgotten. Oh, stars, your face. I am aware, she snapped, though her ears were tremoring with embarrassment. Do not laugh at me. I was attempting to help. You did, just in a very memorable way. She looked away, but her tail betrayed her, swishing in faint agitation. Taran softened his smile. Hey, thank you. She stiffened, slowly turned back toward him. For what? For trying, for looking out for me. No one thanks me for that, she murmured. Where I am from, helping others is expected only from the strong. I was not considered strong. Well, I think you're strong. Her breath hitched, quiet, involuntary, ears lifting as if pulled by invisible strings. You think so? Yeah. You survived out here, alone, through winter. That's not weakness. Arvella looked away, as though the compliment had been physically uncomfortable, or too big to hold. Her voice came out very small. Taryn, humans speak so kindly. It feels dangerous. Why? Because I want to believe you. Before he could answer, a distant guttural howl echoed across the valley. Arvella's ears snapped straight up. Taryn, something approaches. He tensed, hand going for his tool sheath. What kind of something? Not a hare? She said grimly. Something large. How large? Arvella's tail bristled. Large enough that teasing it will not warm the situation. Okay, that was a decent joke. This is not the time. They spun toward the tree line as snow shifted, shadows moved, and an unseen creature growled low in its throat. Taryn stepped closer to her. She stepped closer to him. Their shoulders brushed, barely, instinctively. Arvella didn't pull away. Snow shifted in the tree line with a low, deliberate rumble, too heavy to be wind, too steady to be an illusion. Arvella's pupils thinned, golden eyes sharpening with primal focus as she drew closer to Taryn until their arms touched. She didn't seem to notice she'd done it. Or maybe she did, and fear made her forget her usual distance. Taryn, she whispered, that is no hare, and no forest runner. Big predator? Yes. How big? Arvella swallowed. If it steps on you, there will be nothing left to bury. Ah, great. A branch snapped loudly. Something massive exhaled through the cold, scattering snow from the trees. Taryn braced himself, not with a weapon, but with the ridiculous multi-tool he always carried. It wasn't meant for fighting. It wasn't meant for anything heroic. But it was all he had. Arvella hissed softly. Put that down. You will anger it. So what do we do? Stay still. He stayed still. She stayed still. The world stayed still. And then, a lumbering shape emerged, a broad-shouldered beast coated in thick winter fur, head low, breath steaming in clouds. Its eyes caught the faint light, glimmering with predatory interest. It sniffed the air, focusing directly on Taryn. Arvella instantly stepped in front of him. He blinked. Arvella. No. Her voice was low, tight. It smells your fear. That's not comforting. It knows you are soft. Less comforting. The beast huffed, snow blasting from its nostrils. Arvella raised her hands slowly, claws glinting. She wasn't attacking, she was showing she could. Taryn suddenly understood. Fox tribes didn't comfort with words. They communicated dominance and courage, fearlessness, balance, a kind of social pressure. But he also saw the tremble in her fingers. She was exhausted, still recovering. If the creature charged, she wouldn't stand a chance. Arvella, he whispered, move back. No. You're in no shape to... Taryn. She didn't look back. If it attacks you, you will die. I will not permit that. His chest tightened. She didn't speak like someone offering kindness. She spoke like someone making a vow etched into her bones. Taryn, against all instinct, reached out and touched her shoulder. She flinched, but didn't pull away. That thing isn't going to attack, he murmured. Look. The creature sniffed again, then slowly backed away, uninterested. It wasn't hunting. It was searching for food. The moment it realized they weren't easy prey or appealing prey, it turned and lumbered into the trees, snow crunching under its weight until it vanished entirely. Arvella exhaled shakily. You see? Taryn said, lowering his arm. No fight. She froze. You touched me. Sorry, he said quietly. You were shaking. I was not. She stopped. Her ears drooped slightly. I may have been. He softened his tone. It's normal to be scared. Everyone gets scared. She stared at him as if he'd said something revolutionary. Fear is normal? Yeah. But fear is weakness. No, he said. Fear is information. Courage is choosing what to do with it. Her eyes widened slowly, her breath visible in the cold as her world rearranged itself around the unfamiliar idea. Your people think this way? Most of us do. Arvella looked down at her hands, at the slight tremble she couldn't hide. My people would have cast me aside for this. I'm not your people, he said gently. She blinked hard, and something inside her cracked. Not in a painful way, more like thawing ice. They walked on in silence, though the air between them had changed. It felt warmer, heavier, charged with something unspoken. When they reached the relay node again, Taryn crouched to work on its exposed internals while Arvella hovered close. Not far. Close. Your tools, she said, watching him twist a cable loose. They look fragile. Everything looks fragile to you. She tilted her head. Perhaps. You humans build thin, clever things. We build sturdy things, thick hides, bone, iron. And where does claw sharpening come in? A rare, fleeting smile flickered across her lips. Everywhere. He smirked. I'm starting to believe that. She crouched beside him, her tail wrapping subconsciously around her feet for warmth. Then her gaze drifted toward his hands, steady, methodical, gloveless so he could feel the wires. He noticed her staring. What's up? You touched me earlier, she said softly. You did not ask. Sorry, he said. No. She met his eyes, golden irises shimmering with something new. It did not hurt. That's a good start. There was warmth and certainty you did not touch to claim or punish. That's not what hugs are for, Arvella. Her ears perked. Hugs. Yeah. She repeated the word like a foreign language term she was determined to master. Hugs. They're like friendly holding. Friendly holding. She tested the phrase out loud. And it is not ownership? No, it's connection. She went quiet, looking at the snow, then at him, then somewhere far beyond either. My people would not understand. A pause. But I want to. Before he could respond, a sudden fit of static crackled across the relay's ruined transmitter. Taryn sat up straighter. We're close. If I can power this node long enough to piggyback a signal to the outpost, we might finally call for help. Arvella nodded slowly. Good. If others come, they will bring food, tools, and warmth. And blankets. And soup, she added, nose wrinkling. Though I suspect you will insist I drink it. You bet I will. Her tail flicked. Annoying human. Grumpy fox. Her breath carried what almost sounded like a quiet laugh. But it faded quickly as she turned toward the forest, her ears twitching with instinctive alertness. What's wrong? He asked. She frowned. For a moment. I felt eyes watching us. Taryn scanned the tree line. Nothing. Only drifting flakes and the stillness of winter. You sure? She hesitated. Maybe it was the large creature, maybe only wind. But she didn't sound convinced. He touched her elbow gently, a brief, grounding gesture. She didn't flinch this time. Her ears didn't flatten. She simply looked at him. And for the first time, she didn't seem afraid of touch. She seemed afraid of needing it. Taryn, she whispered, when the time comes, you will not leave me behind, will you? Never, he said, without hesitation. Her breath trembled. Her tail curled closer around her ankles. But her eyes, those fierce golden eyes, finally softened. Then, she said, voice barely audible, I will try to be warm as well. The relay node whined in protest, sending a shiver of static along Terran's gloves as he forced the power cycle. Snowflakes hissed against the exposed circuitry. Something sparked, harmless, but bright enough to make Arvella tense and bare her claws instinctively. "Easy," Terran murmured. "It's just old tech complaining. It sounds like dying." "It's fine. I've seen worse." Arvella shot him a look that suggested worse was not a reassuring category. Her tail had puffed back up, coiled tightly around her legs as she scanned the woods for threats. The sky darkened slightly as dense clouds slid over the valley, dimming the pale light. The forest grew quieter, heavy with an uneasy stillness. "Terran," she whispered. "The forest is holding its breath." He paused. That didn't sound good. "What does that mean?" "It means something moves in it." "Another giant beast?" She shook her head. "Something smaller, smarter." A sharp pop from the relay made her jump closer to him, not intentionally, but with an instinctive snap of movement. Her shoulder pressed against his side. He steadied her. "You okay?" "I do not like machine screaming." "It's not screaming." A metallic shriek tore through the air, far too deliberate to be wind. Arvella froze. That was screaming. Terran's stomach dropped. Another shriek echoed, this time from behind them. Then another. High, cold, predatory. A chorus, Arvella whispered. "Forest runners." "You said they only steal metal." "They do. But when winter deepens, hunger changes their minds." The trees shook. Snow fell in clumps. Then the first one emerged, low to the ground, wiry, covered in mottled silver fur that blended seamlessly into the frost. Its eyes glowed blue-white. Its mouth bristled with needle teeth better suited for ripping flesh than scavenging metal. It didn't roar, it hissed. 3 more crept from the shadows, forming a loose circle, tails lashing the snow. Terran braced himself. "Okay, so what's the plan?" "Do not run," Arvella whispered. "Great. Anything else?" "They will circle. They always circle. They will test our fear. I'm full of that. Consider it tested." Her ears flattened. "This is my fault." "What? How?" "They smell me. They smell a fox tribe. Survivor. And you smell like warmth and food." "Perfect," Terran muttered. "So we're a buffet." Arvella snarled, low, dangerous, protective, and stepped in front of him again, her claws extended with a sharp metallic click. Terran grabbed her arm. "Arvella, you're still exhausted. You can barely—" "Do not finish that sentence. Stand without wobbling." She bared her teeth. "I can stand long enough." One of the forest runners leapt forward suddenly, testing distance with frightening speed. Arvella moved instantly, shoving Terran backward and slashing the air with her claws in a sweeping arc that forced the creature to skid away. But the exertion made her stumble. Terran caught her before she fell, hauling her upright. She panted hard, eyes blazing. "Stay behind me." "Not happening." "Terran, I'm not letting them rip you apart." "You should run." He tightened his grip on her elbow. "I don't run from the people I care about." Her entire body went still, frozen not with fear but with shock. "You care?" "Yeah," Terran yelled, waving his multi-tool at an approaching predator. "Obviously." Another shriek pierced the clearing. The pack shifted, preparing to attack as one. Arvella's breathing wasn't steady. Her muscles trembled with fatigue. But when she looked at him, something hardened in her expression, like a barrier snapping into place. She stepped forward, not to shield him, but to stand beside him. "Terran Locke," she said, voice low and steady. "If you stand with me, I will stand with you." "Good," he said, "because I'm not moving." The forest runners lunged. Taran swung the relay casing like a shield, catching one mid-leap. The impact rattled his bones. Arvella seized another by the scruff and slammed it into the snow with surprising strength, but she winced, faltering on her injured leg. "Arvella!" he shouted. "I am fine," she hissed, even as her knees buckled. He grabbed her before she collapsed, pulling her close enough that their breath mingled in the cold air. "You're not fine." "I will be, but you must run. They want me, not—" "No!" he barked. "I'm not leaving you." Her ears quivered. Her tail pressed involuntarily against his leg, seeking balance, seeking him. The pack regrouped, circling tighter now, hungry and emboldened. Taran scanned the relay node. Still half-active, lights blinking. An idea sparked. "Arvella, when I say go, duck." "What?" she hissed. "Why?" "Just trust me." Another forest runner leapt. "Now." Arvella dropped instantly to her hands and knees. Taran grabbed two exposed power conduits on the relay and yanked them together. A blinding arc of electricity exploded outward in a crackling burst, brief, violent, loud. The predators screeched in terror as the flash scorched the snow around them, sending them scattering back into the trees with panicked yelps. The clearing fell silent except for the fading whine of dying circuits. Arvella slowly rose, eyes wide, staring at the melted patch of snow where the arc had flared. "That was reckless," she breathed. "Yeah," Taran panted. His hands were shaking. "Pretty much. You could have been killed." He gave her a shaky grin. "Thought we agreed fear isn't weakness." Her gaze softened, warm, trembling, disbelieving. "You risked everything." "I wasn't going to let them touch you." Arvella stepped closer, closer still, until her forehead pressed lightly against his chest, ears lowering in exhaustion and emotion she didn't dare name. "You should not care this much," she whispered. "Well," he murmured, gently touching her arm. "Too late." She closed her eyes, let out a long, slow breath that sounded like surrender, not of strength, but of isolation. "Taran." Her voice trembled. "I do not know how to be close to someone." "That's okay," he said softly. "We'll figure it out. Together." Her fingers curled into his coat, her tail wrapped around his ankle like a silent vow. And somewhere in the snowy forest, unseen eyes watched them retreat from the clearing. Predators driven away, but not all dangers gone. The trek back toward the shelter should have been a relief. After all, they'd survived what absolutely qualified as being nearly eaten by winter nightmares. But Arvella stayed tense the entire way, ears flicking back toward the tree line every few steps. Her tail stayed pressed against Taran's leg, not quite holding him, not quite hiding behind him, but something between the two. "Taran," she murmured. The forest runner pack fled too quickly. Too quickly. "We electrocuted the ground." "Yes, but they usually regroup, stalk, test weaknesses." "They didn't." Her voice dropped, solemn. "Something frightened them more than us." He didn't like the sound of that. "You think another predator's nearby?" "No predator scares them like that." Her golden eyes darkened. "Not unless it walks on two legs." They topped the ridge again, crunching along the snowy slope. Taran scanned the horizon, nothing but the white expanse, shimmering under gray clouds. But Arvella's senses weren't wrong. "I can smell them," she whispered. Taran's pulse jumped. "Forest runners?" "No." She inhaled sharply, face tightening. "Fox tribe. My tribe." His steps halted mid-stride. The air suddenly felt colder, sharper. "Arvella," he said gently. "Are you sure?" Her ears lowered with a mixture of dread and resigned bitterness. "There's scent markers. I know them as well as my own heartbeat." "So they've been following us?" She shook her head. "They have been hunting me." A deep swallow. "They never stopped." Taran stepped closer. "Why?" What did you do? She hesitated. Only a heartbeat. But it was enough to tell him. The truth was painful. I left. That's it. That is everything. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. My clan believes weakness spreads like sickness. They purge it. I was not strong enough for them. A small, bitter laugh escaped. I was barely strong enough for myself. Taryn felt something ugly twist in his chest. Rage, protective instinct, the desire to find her entire clan and shake sense into them. Arvella, you're one of the strongest people I've met. She blinked up at him, wide eyes, stunned, as if no one had ever told her anything kind in her entire life. Do not say that, she whispered. It makes my chest feel too tight. That's called emotion, Arvella. She pressed one clawed hand over her sternum, as if afraid something inside might break. It is uncomfortable. Yeah, Taryn murmured. But sometimes good things are. Before she could answer, a sharp crack echoed behind them. They spun. A figure stepped from the tree line, tall, furred from the elbows down, with the same fox-like ears as Arvella, but sharper, more rigid. His eyes were cold, pale silver. Armor wrapped his torso, marked with tribal etchings. Two more fox warriors appeared behind him, silent shadows in the snow. Arvella's breath caught. Rathar. Taryn recognized something instantly. This wasn't a stranger. This was someone from her past, someone who had authority, maybe too much of it. Rathar looked her over with contempt, hidden behind a mask of calm discipline. You survived the blizzard, he said. Unfortunate. Arvella flinched. Why are you here? To bring you home, he replied, or to ensure you do not contaminate others with your frailty. Taryn stepped forward. She's not going anywhere with you. Rathar tilted his head slightly, as if noticing Taryn for the first time. Human, he said, voice dripping with dismissive amusement. You stand before warriors. This is not your matter. It is, Taryn snapped, because she's with me. That got Rathar's full attention. He stepped closer, sniffing the air in a slow, predatory way. You stink of her scent, and she of yours. His eyes narrowed. You touched her. Arvella froze, mortified. Rathar snarled. You dare claim what you cannot protect? Taryn stiffened. I didn't claim anyone. She's her own person. Lies, Rathar hissed. Touch is ownership. She is marked. Taryn opened his mouth. Then Arvella suddenly stepped between them. I am not your property, she growled, and I do not belong to the clan anymore. Rathar's expression hardened. Then you belong to no one. Arvella didn't hesitate. Good. The shock on her former leader's face was subtle, barely noticeable. But Taryn saw it, and he saw how Arvella stood taller in that moment, shoulders squared, ears sharp, tail lifted with a courage she might not have known she had. Rathar drew a long, curved blade from his hip. Taryn immediately stepped in front of Arvella. Her voice cracked with panic. Taryn, no! He kept his eyes on Rathar. Put the weapon down. It is mercy, Rathar said smoothly. She was weak. She abandoned her oath. The clan will not accept her return. Ending her here ends her shame. There's no shame in surviving, Taryn said. There is shame in needing rescue. Taryn didn't look back, but he could practically feel Arvella's heart breaking behind him. Not from Rathar's words, but from how easily she believed them for so long. Arvella, Taryn murmured, do you want to go back? Her answer was immediate. No. Then you're not going back? Rathar lunged. Taryn didn't think, didn't plan. Instinct took over. He grabbed the broken relay casing and slammed it into the snow, creating a burst of sparks and steam that forced Rathar to recoil. Arvella took the chance, springing forward, claws flashing as she intercepted another warrior who charged from the side. But she wasn't ready. Her legs buckled, her breath hitched with pain. Taran caught her before she collapsed, pulling her behind him again. "Stay back," he whispered. "Taran, I've got you." Rethar snarled. "You protect her as if she deserves it." "She does. You are a fool. Probably." The fox warriors circled. Rethar raised his blade again. Arvella suddenly grabbed Taran's coat, pulling him close, her forehead pressing briefly to his. "Taran," she whispered desperately, "I cannot lose you." "You won't." And when they turned to face the warriors together, shoulders aligned, breath fogging the cold air, Arvella's hand slipped into his without her even realizing it. Not possession, not fear, instinct, trust. Rethar's eyes flicked down to their joined hands. His snarl deepened. "So be it," he hissed. "You die together." He leapt. Taran braced as the world narrowed into a single, violent heartbeat. Ready to fight a clan he didn't understand, ready to protect a woman who had never been protected, ready to stand his ground even if it killed him. And in that final moment, the only thing he felt was Arvella's grip tightening around his hand. She was terrified. She was trembling. But she didn't let go. Rethar hit the ground with enough force to send a spray of snow bursting around him. His blade came down in a clean, predatory arc meant to sever. Not threaten, not intimidate, but end. Taran barely dodged in time, pulling Arvella with him as they tumbled out of the strike radius. Snow hissed where the blade sliced through the air. Arvella staggered, catching herself on one knee. Her breath trembled. She was beyond exhausted, still carrying the cold from the night before, still weakened. She tried to stand, failed, and still tried again. "Arvella, stop," Taran whispered, hands steadying her. "Shoulders." "No," she rasped. "I must fight." "You'll collapse." "I will collapse," she corrected, panting, "after you are safe." Another fox warrior charged. Taran swung the metal relay casing again, catching the attacker in the face. The warrior reeled backward, stunned, more from shock than pain. Rethar snarled. "Human, you dare raise metal against warriors?" "Damn right I do." Taran planted his feet, metal shard raised like a shield. The wind whipped between them, carrying flakes of snow and the echo of their ragged breaths. Rethar lunged again, faster, more furious than before. Arvella shoved herself up, staggering into the path of the second warrior to keep him from blindsiding Taran. She clawed at his arm, but her strength faltered halfway through the strike. Her claws snagged on the fur lining of his armor. She lost her grip and stumbled. The warrior struck her hard across the ribs. Arvella cried out, a sharp, agonized sound that sliced through Taran's chest like a blade. "Arvella!" She fell to the snow, curling around the wound, breath coming in ragged stutters. Her tail curled around her torso protectively. Her ears flattened low, not out of fear, but pain. Taran's vision blurred with shock and fury. He charged Rethar without thinking, swinging the jagged relay casing like an improvised mace. Rethar blocked easily, shoving him back with a strength Taran had no hope of matching. "You are weak," Rethar growled. "Just as she is." "No," Taran panted. "We're survivors." Rethar struck again. Taran deflected with the casing, barely. His arms shook violently from the impact. A third strike tore the metal right out of his hand, sending it spinning across the snow. Taran stumbled back, unarmed. Arvella tried to rise again, but her legs buckled. She collapsed, pushing herself up with shaking arms. "Taran, run. I'm not leaving you." Rethar advanced. Each step was slow, deliberate, confident. "You chose a hopeless cause," he said. You chose a flawed creature who cannot battle, cannot endure. Taran planted himself between Rathar and Arvella, chest heaving. Yeah, he said. Well, I chose her anyway. Rathar's eyes glinted with disgust. Then die for her. He swung the blade downward, and something hit him from the side with a feral scream. Arvella. She'd launched herself at him, raw, desperate, wild. All her strength gone, her body shaking violently, but her spirit burning so fiercely it drowned out every ounce of fear. Her claws raked across Rathar's shoulder. He snarled, twisting to throw her off. She clung on, teeth bared in a primal snarl. Do not, she hissed, voice breaking. Touch him. Her strength gave out, and Rathar flung her aside. She landed hard, coughing, sliding across the snow. Taran's heart stopped. He ran to her, dropping to his knees. Arvella! No, hey, stay with me. Her hand groped weakly for him. He caught it instantly, squeezing tight. Taran. Her voice was a broken whisper. I am tired. You're okay, he lied. You're fine. You said, fear is not weakness, she murmured, trying to smile. Then I am not weak. I am simply very afraid for you. Rathar approached, blade raised for the killing strike. Taran stood again, unarmed, shaking, furious. You're not touching her. You cannot stop me. No, Taran agreed quietly. But she saved me when she had nothing left. So I'll save her even if I've got nothing left either. Rathar swung. Taran didn't move. He didn't flinch, didn't break, didn't run. And that single act, standing there, unmoving, willing to die for someone who had never once been defended, made Arvella let out a sound that wasn't words at all. It was a scream, not of rage, not of pain, a summon, a fox tribe instinct buried so deep she'd never used it in her life. The snow rippled, the trees shuddered. A wave of sound rolled through the clearing, low, resonant, primal. Rathar froze mid-strike. A second warrior faltered. The third staggered. Taran blinked. What was that? Arvella, trembling on her hands and knees, managed one sentence. A soul cry. Rathar's face drained of color. You, he stepped back. You dare invoke the ancient rite? Arvella's voice was raw, shaking with pain and fury. I invoke sanctuary, she cried. He is under my protection. Taran blinked. Wait, I'm what? Rathar's eyes blazed. You fled the clan. You forfeited your rights. Arvella pushed herself upright an inch, just enough to lift her head. Her ears stood tall, her tail lifted weakly behind her. I fled cruelty, she whispered, but I did not flee our law. Rathar clenched his jaw. The other warriors hesitated. A soul cry was binding, even to exiles. Taran looked between them. Is this good for us? Arvella coughed, wincing. It means they cannot kill you. And you? She didn't answer. Rathar lowered his blade, only to point it at Arvella. She invoked the right, he growled. Not you. The human lives. His eyes focused on her. She does not. Taran stepped in front of her instantly. No one touches her. Rathar snarled. Move. No. You would die for her? Rathar demanded. Taran's voice shook, but not from fear, from certainty. In a heartbeat. Something in the air shifted. Arvella choked back a sob, sharp, involuntary. Her claws dug into the snow. Taran, she whispered, voice breaking. No one has ever stood between me and death. Well, Taran said softly, get used to it. Rathar's blade rose again, but he didn't swing, because another sound rolled across the valley, deep, mechanical, human, a rumbling engine. Taran whipped around as a bright flare exploded overhead. A distress beacon, his beacon. The outpost team was arriving. He had just enough time to shout, Arvel! And then a rapid volley of stun pulses slammed into the snow, scattering the fox warriors in a burst of electric blue light. Human rescue drones descended. Searchlights cut through the tree line. Rathar hissed, clutching his arm. This is not finished. He retreated into the forest, his warriors vanishing behind him like fading ghosts. Taran fell to his knees beside Arvella. She was shaking, crying quietly, ears flat, tail limp. He pulled her gently into his arms. Careful, steady, warm. She didn't fight it, didn't flinch, didn't question it. She just pressed her forehead to his chest and whispered through broken breaths, Why do you stay? Even now? And Taran, exhausted and furious and relieved, held her tighter. Because you deserve someone who won't leave. Arvella closed her eyes, finally letting herself lean into him. For the first time, she looked like she believed him. Human boots thudded across the snow, crunching through the frost in hurried, purposeful strides. The bright searchlights cut harsh beams between the trees, sweeping across the clearing where Arvella clung to Taran's coat like he was the last solid thing in the world. Taran Locke, a familiar voice called. He didn't look up. His focus stayed on the trembling foxwoman in his arms. It's okay, he murmured into her hair. They're friendly. They're here to help. Arvella buried her face deeper against him, ears quivering. They are loud. Humans usually are. She made a faint, shaky sound, half agreement, half overwhelmed. 3 outpost rangers approached, weapons lowered once they recognized him. Their visors flickered with scanning overlays, assessing the scene. One ranger knelt beside them. Easy, we've got med supplies. You both look half dead. Taran shook his head. Help her first. Arvella tensed immediately. No, do not touch me. Taran squeezed her hand. Hey, they're not like your clan. They're here to treat wounds, not punish. Her breathing steadied only a little. She looked at him, not the humans. Eyes pleading, frightened, trusting only him in this unfamiliar chaos. If you say it is safe, she whispered, then I will trust your voice. His chest tightened. It's safe. I promise. She let the medic approach, slowly, cautiously, like a cornered animal allowing a stranger near. When the cold metal scanner touched her skin, she flinched violently and grabbed Taran's sleeve with both hands, claws digging in slightly. Easy, he said, brushing her cheek with his thumb. She leaned into the touch instinctively, something she wouldn't have done even a day ago. The medic scanned her ribs, brow furrowing. Bruising, microfractures, hypothermia recovery. She needs heat, protein, and rest, and, she's not human. Does she eat meat? Yes, Arvella muttered. Soup is terrible. The ranger blinked. Soup? She won't touch vegetables, Taran supplied. That is not true, Arvella insisted. Then quieter, they are suspicious. Taran stifled a laugh. The ranger gave up trying to understand and started prepping a thermal wrap. Arvella stiffened again, but Taran held her hands until she relaxed enough to let the medic secure the warming band across her ribs. When the humans stepped away, murmuring to each other, Arvella sagged against Taran, utterly spent. You are not injured? She asked weakly. A few bruises. Nothing serious. She closed her eyes in relief. Good. I could not bear it if you fell. You nearly threw yourself into 3 warriors while half frozen. That is different, she whispered fiercely. I am expendable. You are not. Taran cupped her face gently. Arvella, don't say that. She met his gaze, raw, confused, vulnerable. Why? It is true. No, it isn't. Her breath quivered. You believe otherwise. I do. He brushed snow from her hair. She leaned into his hand again, eyes fluttering shut. The Rangers were whispering behind them, watching the scene with a mixture of awe and confusion. Taryn ignored them. Later, after the shock, after the storm, he'd have time to explain. Right now, all he cared about was the fox woman holding tightly to his arm, refusing to let go even as exhaustion pulled at her. They carried her on a hover stretcher for the trek back to the outpost. Arvella tolerated it only because Taryn walked beside her the entire time, keeping one hand on hers so she wouldn't feel surrounded by strangers. Whenever she started to panic at the hum of the engines or the cold sting of incoming night, Taryn would squeeze her hand and murmur, "It's okay. I'm here." And she would settle, still frightened, still tense, but grounded by his presence. By the time they reached the outpost gates, the sky had deepened into purplish dusk. Warm orange lights spilled from windows, glowing in the snow like little hearths. Arvella stared at the settlement with wide eyes, ears tilting forward. "This place is bright." "It's home," Taryn said. "For you," she murmured. "Not for me." He stopped walking, gently brushed a strand of her hair behind her ear. "It can be," he said softly. Her breath caught, her lashes trembling. She didn't reply, but her hand tightened around his. Inside the medical bay, they wrapped her in thermal blankets. She winced at every unfamiliar sensation, flinching from examining tools and bed straps until Taryn stepped between her and the equipment with a calming look. The med techs quickly learned, do not touch Arvella first. Let Taryn touch her arm, shoulder, or hand. Then she'll allow them closer. Her trust was selective in one direction. After the medics backed off to give her space, Taryn pulled a chair beside her bed. Arvella immediately scooted closer, still wrapped in blankets like a cocoon, and rested her head on his shoulder. Her ears brushed his collar, her tail draped over the edge of the bed, twitching every few seconds in restless fatigue. "Taryn." Her voice was barely audible. "Back in the forest, when I thought Rethar would kill you, a part of me broke." He rested his cheek lightly on her hair. "Hey, I'm not going anywhere." "I do not understand what this bond is," she whispered. "This closeness." Her fingers reached hesitantly, curling into the fabric of his sleeve. "But it hurts, and it comforts. I do not know how to hold both at once." He smiled, gentle and warm. "That's normal. That's connection." "Connection," she repeated, ears flicking. "I fear it." "I know. Yet I reach for it." Her voice trembled. "I reach for you." He squeezed her hand. I reached back. A soft, shaky sound escaped her, half breath, half emotion. "Taryn, may I stay here?" He blinked. "At the outpost?" She shook her head weakly. "No, here." Her hand tightened on his sleeve. "With you." His heart thudded. "You can stay," he said softly, "as long as you want." Arvella's golden eyes lifted, shimmering in the warm glow of the med bay lights. Then, for the first time since he'd met her, she smiled, small, fragile, but real, and she whispered, "Then I will rest." She curled her tail across her legs and finally, fell asleep leaning against him, trusting him completely in a world she didn't yet understand. Taryn watched her sleep, brushing frost from her hair, and whispered a promise she wouldn't hear. "You're safe now. I'm not letting you go." Arvella slept for nearly a full day, her body finally surrendering to rest after far too long running on fear, hunger, and instinct alone. Taryn barely left her side. He stepped out only when forced to eat or stretch. But the moment she stirred, her ears twitching beneath the blankets, he was already there. By the time she woke fully, the medbay lights had dimmed into a soft evening glow. Outside the frosted window, snow drifted lazily, quietly, like the world itself had decided to slow down just for her. Arvella blinked sleepily, her lashes fluttering. The first thing she did, without hesitation, without fear, was reach for Taryn. He caught her hand instantly. "Hey," he said softly. "You're okay?" She studied him for a long moment, as if confirming he was real and not some fever dream from her exhausted mind. "You are still here?" she murmured, voice hoarse. "Of course I am." Her fingers curled gently around his. "No one has ever stayed with me this long." "That's not your fault," Taryn said. "That's their failure." Arvella lowered her eyes, as though unsure how to bear a kindness that expected nothing in return. Her tail, half seen under the blanket, thumped lightly against the bed in a slow, uncertain rhythm. After a few minutes, she sat up carefully, the blanket sliding down her shoulders. Taryn reached to help, but she lifted a hand. "I can sit," she said. "Just slowly." He respected the pace. Every muscle in her body moved with the stiffness of healing bruises, but she didn't complain. When she finally settled, her gaze drifted to the window. "This place is strange," she murmured. "Warm lights, quiet corridors, no one watches from the shadows." "That's kind of the point," Taryn said with a small smile. "It's not perfect, but it's safe." "And they allow me here," she whispered, as if it were unthinkable. "You saved me. That earns you more than welcome." Arvella fell silent, absorbing the idea with a tenderness she seemed scared to acknowledge. Her ears twitched as voices passed by in the hall. Laughs, casual footsteps, the hum of human routine. "Do all humans speak so freely?" she asked. "Pretty much." "And none of them plan to harm me?" she pressed. "No one here," Taryn said firmly. "You have my word." Her next breath shook, not from fear but from the slow devastation of relief. Only now did Taryn realize how deeply constant danger had carved itself into her life. He rested a hand gently on her back. Arvella leaned into it without thinking, her head lowering, ears softening. After a while, she asked quietly, "What will happen next?" "Well," Taryn said, "first you heal. Properly this time. And after? That's up to you." She looked startled. "Me?" "Yeah. You choose what comes next." Arvella stared at him like he'd just flipped her entire worldview. "My clan made choices for me. Always." "Well," Taryn said with a gentle smile, "welcome to human territory. We like options." A small, breathy sound escaped her, half laugh, half disbelief. The medbay door swished open then, and Commander Halden stepped inside. A tall, broad-shouldered woman with a stern face softened only by the slightest raise of her brow. "Taryn," she said, nodding. "Glad you're alive. Again." "Again?" Arvella whispered. "It's a trend," he muttered. Halden stepped closer, studying Arvella with professional caution. "Are you the survivor Taryn brought in?" Arvella stiffened, eyes darting. Taryn reached for her hand under the blanket, giving her fingers a small squeeze. She exhaled and nodded once. "My name is Arvella." "Welcome to Outpost Juno," Halden said. "You're under our protection for as long as you need. No threats, no demands." Arvella blinked twice. "You do not require anything of me?" "No," Halden said. "You're safe here." Arvella looked as if she might cry. She didn't, but her tail curled around her legs in a small, instinctive gesture of comfort. Holden glanced at Taryn. "We'll need a report when she's stable. You two take your time." When the commander left, Arvella whispered. "She did not stare at me like prey. She did not judge. Why?" "Because you're a person," Taryn said simply. Arvella made another small, fragile sound. She shifted then, pulling her knees up slightly, blanket bunching. She looked at Taryn with a softness he hadn't seen yet. Something blooming, something warm, something new. Taryn, she said quietly, I have thought much about touch. He raised a brow, trying to hide his smile. Oh, last night, she murmured, looking down. When you held me, I felt no fear, only warmth. And today? He asked gently. She met his eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper. Today I feel safe. He didn't move closer. He didn't rush her. He simply waited. Arvella hesitated, a breath, a tremble, a moment of courage gathering in her chest. Then she leaned forward, slowly, tentatively, almost shyly. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder, her hands resting lightly against his chest. Her ears brushed his jaw. Her breath warmed the fabric of his shirt. Not desperation, not survival. A choice. Her choice. Taryn, she whispered. If this is a hug, I wished to learn it. He wrapped his arms around her, carefully, respectfully, warmly. Her tail curled around his hip in a gentle, instinctive embrace of its own. Arvella melted into him, trembling with emotion she couldn't name. This is warmth, she breathed. I thought it was pain, but it is not. He held her a little tighter. No, it's comfort. She closed her eyes, letting her weight rest fully against him. Then I want more of it. He laughed softly. Good, I can do that. Arvella nuzzled lightly against him, a small, vulnerable gesture buried under layers of old fear and new trust. Taryn, she murmured, I do not know where I belong. With me? He said without hesitation. Her breath hitched. Her tail tightened around him. Then, she whispered, voice thick with emotion, I will belong. Later that night, long after the medbay lights dimmed to their lowest setting, Arvella curled beside Taryn on the narrow bed, wrapped not in fear, not in obligation, but in his arms. Her tail draped over both of them like a soft, warm blanket. For the first time in her life, she slept deeply, in warmth, in safety, in connection. And as she slept, peaceful, ears flicking in dreams, Taryn whispered into her hair, You're home now. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe and stay with us for the next HFY journey.